could you give our audience a summary over about what has happened over the past few days?
Absolutely. So the way medication abortion works in this country is that there are two drugs. Mifepristone is the first drug and misoprostol is the second drug. These lawsuits were all about that first drug, mifepristone. The FDA approved it back in 2000 to be used in abortions, and a group of conservative doctors filed a lawsuit in Texas saying that the FDA unlawfully approved this drug and never should have done it because it's not safe according to them, and the FDA should have known that. Now, all of the science shows that this is an incredibly safe and effective drug, but this conservative group used anti-abortion studies and really sort of fake science to say to this judge that you should say that the FDA acted improperly. And on Friday afternoon, this judge, who really was handpicked, they filed it in a very particular location in Texas to get this very conservative judge, and he agreed with them. He said that the FDA acted improperly and that the FDA's approval needs to be stayed, which means put on hold, while the full case goes forward, because this is just an initial ruling. But importantly, he said, I will wait 7 days for this opinion to take effect because he's going to let the parties appeal the case. So for now, there's no difference in abortion provision in this country, but if Friday night comes and goes without any other courts weighing in, there might be.
Gotcha. So there's the 7-day waiting period, which allows the Biden administration to appeal. Talk a bit about the opinion and how this right-wing judge appointed by Trump, Matthew Kacsmaryk, in Texas, what did he use in terms of some of his reasoning behind this? I mean, my sense is that he simply basically copy and pasted what the plaintiffs were arguing.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, going into this, a lot of us feared that this judge, who has a very ideological and activist anti-abortion background, we feared that he would let that rule the day. We hoped that wouldn't be the case, but we feared that would, and our fears came true. He used the language of the anti-abortion movement. He talked about, instead of talking about fetuses, he talked about unborn human beings. He talked about abortionists rather than abortion providers. He accused the Biden administration of engaging in eugenics. He described the procedure by talking about babies being killed. So he really just bought the anti-abortion movement's arguments and language hook, line, and sinker. And he used studies that were not peer-reviewed, that were based on websites where people self-reported their being unhappy with abortions that they had, as opposed to peer-reviewed science that is respected in the field. He picked and he chose what he wanted, and he overruled the FDA. That's not the role of judges. Judges are supposed to defer to the expertise of agencies like the FDA, and he did the complete opposite of that.
And the exact opposite, right? Undercutting the FDA's authority to make these kinds of determinations, which has been long established, has it not?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time ever that a federal judge has said that the FDA improperly approved a drug. And so it sets a dangerous precedent, not only in the field of abortion, but in other areas too, where someone unhappy with a drug that the FDA has approved can just go to a judge like this judge who agrees with their ideology, and get this judge to overrule the FDA.
And how does this, well, okay, so is this the same kind of reasoning that a case like West Virginia versus EPA was attempting to undercut? I'm trying to draw this connection between Republican efforts to undercut federal agencies' authority and make it so that their scientists, their experts have to go through the legislature or the Senate, often where it's much more easy to politicize the process. Is that a fair connection to make in terms of like the way the Republicans are trying to attack the administrative state and agencies like this for their agenda?
Absolutely. I mean, I think first and foremost, this is a case attacking abortion, but you're absolutely right that underlying it is an attack on the administrative state. Here you have Congress creating the FDA and saying you have the authority to develop the expertise in food and drugs and approve and issue your approval for things that are safe based on your expertise. This judge is saying, well, no, I get to do that. I get to second guess you, which undermines the entire point of an agency like the FDA and an entire point of agencies in general. So you're absolutely right by connecting it to this modern Republican Party attack on the administrative state.
And so just to flesh out Kaczmarek's invalidation of the FDA's approval of mifepristone, first, for our audience, what is mifepristone as a drug, and how safe is it? Because I'm seeing articles saying it's safer than Tylenol, and you have a judge, in his opinion, essentially posting conspiracy theories and saying, oh, it could be really dangerous.
Yeah, it's an incredibly safe drug. The drug was approved in 2000 after years of study. It's been studied repeatedly since then because of the controversy around abortion. And some say it's the most studied drug ever. And what the studies have shown is that it's safer than Tylenol, Viagra, and almost every other common drug out there. Now, keep in mind that when a drug is prescribed as much as mifepristone is, there's about more than 50% of abortions in this country take place using medication, which means about 500,000 people use mifepristone a year. That there are going to be complications. Absolutely, just like there's complications with Tylenol and Advil and aspirin, et cetera. But when you look at the percentages, it's safer than these other common drugs. It is effective, it is safe, and that's why the FDA approved it. But really, what it comes down to is that because it is effective at ending pregnancies, that's why this judge ruled against it. He is fundamentally opposed to the goal of this drug, which is to end someone's pregnancy. And because he's opposed to that, he found junk science to support his conclusion that this was unlawfully approved.
And some of the other elements of his reasoning I'd love to flesh out here. Like he used and hinged his decision on an anti-obscenity, anti-vice law from the 19th century that has long been laid to rest. How did he come to that? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what the plaintiffs were arguing as well. But what was the underlying underlying kind of logic, at least, that he tried to put in terms of pen to paper in using the Comstock Act? Yeah,
the Comstock Act dates 150 years ago. It was passed in 1873, and it's from Anthony Comstock. He was an anti-birth control crusader and an anti-vice crusader. And tucked into this federal law was also prohibition on abortion. Now, written initially, it was all about birth control, advertisements for birth control, and the like. But it also prohibits abortion, or prohibited advertisements for abortion, and importantly here, mailing any item that can induce an abortion. Now, in the 1920s and 1930s, this law was pretty much determined by federal appeal courts not to apply to legal contraception and legal abortion. It only applies to unlawful abortion. And for almost 100 years, no one really thought of the Comstock Act because those decisions sort of put it to bed. The anti-abortion movement after Dobbs has been focusing on the Comstock Act as a way to ban abortion nationwide. Because if you think about it, pills get mailed. So if abortion pills get mailed that you can't, under the Comstock law, you can't mail those. But you know what else gets mailed? Everything that's in an abortion clinic that's used to induce an abortion, because those things aren't produced in the abortion clinic. They
Right.
go through the mail, they go through FedEx and UPS to get them to the center, to the clinic. And so The anti-abortion movement sees this law written 150 years ago as a way to try and ban abortion nationwide, because if you shut down the mail and express services as a way to transport things to abortion clinics, you shut down abortion.
Right. I mean, that's the point.